I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Fraser Town Board on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 to order. And I guess, yeah, even before a roll call, I'm going to turn it over to Antoinette.
First, I'd like to say congratulations to all of our new trustees and our new mayor. It is on.
Okay, it's just by hearing.
Yeah. So we're going to do an oath for all of our new elected trustees. Election, congratulations. And I'm gonna hand you your oath and we're gonna read them out loud together. And then I'm gonna have each of you sign them and just someone who you so that you can. Each of you stand out and we're going to read the oath together out loud. And you can either put your hand over your heart or raise your right arm up, whatever you prefer. And then when I say I, I'm going to just insert your name. Okay? I do solemnly swear. Or affirm. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the state of Colorado. The Fraser Town Code. And faithfully perform the duties. Of the office of the Fraser Town Trustee or Mayor. Upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you, Eileen.
Yeah.
Yes. Transfer the seats. She has some music for this.
I get that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Eileen. May I have a roll call?
Katie Fisher. Katie Souls.
And Brian Cirkvenick.
Online is.
Yeah, hi, Louis Gregory. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We
we can
can.
hear you.
Okay, I was not able to join earlier. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, thank you. We would like to recognize and thank Eileen Waldo and Parnell Quinn. Michael will say some words as well as any other of the trustees.
Yeah, so it's an honor to see people that step up to serve in these positions. And for Eileen Waldo, she served on the board from 2012 to 2024. And Parnell Quinn served from 2016 to 2024. Both very large sense of service. So I just want to say personally, thank you for your service, and I enjoyed working with you. And I hope to continue to see you engage with town happenings. And it's been a pleasure for me personally to work with you guys and see all the great work that you've done. I think you've brought a lot of great things to the community, and it's something that you should definitely be proud of. But I just want to commemorate you, and we do have a gift to provide to you as well. So these are from the last photo contest. So Parnell, recognition of honorable service. Thank you. Very nice. Eileen. Recognition of honorable service. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Eileen, I want to thank you for your time that you've given to the town of Fraser. You brought a thorough knowledge of the history of town and of town policies that have been passed. I've greatly appreciated knowing that you always read your board packet and that you were always prepared for each meeting. The questions and clarifications that you would request were always intelligent and helpful. I've enjoyed the extra time that we've had together as you've finished your time on the board as the interim mayor, and will continue to reach out to you as an amazing resource for the town of Fraser. And Parnell, I want to thank you as well for your time on the board. Your perspective, which depending on the topic, may have differed from the majority of the board, brought about excellent debates and forced the other board members to see things through a different vantage point. Your views on private land rights and your knowledge of the town zoning were very beneficial to the board. I know that you won't be a stranger to town hall, and I look forward to the opportunities we have to work together in the future. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries.
Would you like a picture with your family?
With my what?
With your family or?
Oh, they're already out.
Well, they're already out.
Yep, they're gone. So it's all good.
Well, I got some other pictures. We'll share those later.
That'll work. All right. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, vote carries. Prior to going into open forum, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the tremendous losses that we've had in our community in the last 2 weeks. On April 6th, we lost Octavio Ruiz Munoz Jr., or Junior as he is known. Junior would have been 12 years old on June 16th. I know that he touched so many lives during his time with us, and he will be tremendously missed. On April 9th, we lost Dallas LeBeau. Dallas began skiing with Winter Park Competition Center around the age of 8 years old. Most recently, he was a Winter Park coach and a competitor in the freeride world qualifiers. He had a passion for skiing that was contagious, and he will be greatly missed. Also on April 9th, we lost Roger Headland. If you've been in Grand County for any length of time, you've been touched by Roger's impact. Whether it was through his entrepreneurial ventures, including Home James, Mad Adventures, Trailblazers, and Elevation Pizza, or through the boards that he sat on, which included the Fraser Valley Rec District, Grand County Search and Rescue, the Grand Foundation, the Headwaters Trail Alliance, Grand County Advocates, and so many more. The loss of Roger will be felt for a long, long time, and we appreciate everything that he did for this community. Help is available if you find yourself struggling with these losses. Go to buildinghopegrand.com and they will help you find the support that you need.
Nice.
I would now like to open forum. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you to come to the podium. Any hands online? I see Deborah Schulman. Deborah, you may have to unmute.
That's what we've asked you to unmute. Can you unmute so you can speak?
Deborah, we can come back to you if you're having difficulties. We'll keep the meeting rolling. All right, we're moving on to discussion and possible action, resolution 2024-0401, municipal appointments. Antoinette.
So the municipal appointments must be made every year after the election, within 30 days of the election. And this includes the officers that are on the resolution, your town clerk, your treasurer, town attorney, and then our municipal judge and the alternative judge also. So this is written in our code, and it's really actually written in the state statutes also that must be done. Any questions on that?
Guess the question is, I don't know why we're just accepting an attorney and not, with an RFP to see if there's a better attorney that might be a better fit for the community.
So maybe I'll let Michael speak to
So
that.
that's a process that we can go through. We do have, they are currently functioning as our attorney through our current contract, but we do have the ability to lead that contract if there's a decision to go through an RFP process. This is really just a requirement for Antoinette for the new board to appoint these. So it includes the town attorney, the local judge, Antoinette as town clerk, and I'm treasurer which is Lori Waters. Lori Waters was actually appointed as treasurer before. So they're really just a formality for these appointments, but
I guess the term would be mainly around attorney.
okay.
That, I know we can't go without an attorney. But could we go through that process?
So we can go through that process at any time. I believe it's a 30-day notice per our contract with Kent Whitmer's law firm to go through that process. And then it would be working through an RFP process to see what those candidates look like, get the RFP published, see what the responses come back, and then have the board make an evaluation from there.
Michael, if I could ask a question. When will the new board be meeting together to discuss these concerns and other directions we want to discuss as a group? Has that been set? Have you talked? Have you
Like through
a town board
retreat?
yeah.
We're actually, I have an update for that, but me and Brian can be working through the details as far as time, location, for retreat. We are looking at this summer, June or July.
Okay. I'd probably ask us to go a little sooner if possible.
Okay. We can look at that. So
Great.
we can talk about that. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So for Nat and for Peggy, I've got my hearing aids cranked up, but you need to have your microphones close by so I can hear you. Is anybody else having trouble hearing them? Okay, so we've got other hands. So bring your mics in closer, please. And I'll try not to harass you again. And then I talk too softly because I sound like I'm really loud. So just tell me, say, so.
Right there with you, Katie.
Thank you.
So I would entertain further discussion, or I would entertain a motion to approve.
To approve resolution number 2024-04-01. I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, vote carries. Moving on to resolution 2024-0402, Mayor Pro Tem, Antoinette.
So this is again, after every 2 years after the election, the board does have to select a mayor pro tem to serve a 2-year term. So it doesn't necessarily run with the tenure of your seat, but it is every 2 years that the mayor pro tem must be selected amongst the trustees.
I'm going to make a motion to nominate Peggy Smith as Mayor Pro Tem.
Nominate Katie Souls.
Two motions on the floor. So let's
Go back to my
So-
motion if we could, if there's a second on my motion.
Perfect.
okay, further discussion. No. Okay. Short discussion.
No. But thank you for your support.
Is it the board appointed or is the mayor pick?
It is a board appointment. Yeah, I'm happy with Peggy. I wish that we had someone who was on the board for the last at least 2 years, but that's okay. I think you're obviously going to do a great job. So I'm fine with it if the rest of the board is fine with it.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, vote passes. All right. Moving on to thank you of election judges.
Thank you, Mayor. So just wanted to show some appreciation for the election judges that helped us through this election. This is by far the largest turnout that we've seen in an election ever, my understanding. And it's definitely a high pressure position. And I just want to say thank you for helping us work through the audit process for the elections as well, but also providing just really good quality voter counts and everything too for this. And it's a hard thing to do, and definitely want to invite anyone in the future to, if this is something you've ever been curious about engaging in, to please reach out and show some interest in that. It's something that has to be done. But just want to show some appreciation for them for their work.
Yep, and I'd like to thank them. They did really a great job. It is a hard job. It's a very long, tedious day, the day of the election. Those election judges worked 15 hours. So it's a process, and we always, like Michael said, would love to see other people come and participate in that process. It's part of the whole election process of our democracy, and it's interesting. I had a lot of judges that actually do the county elections. So it was really interesting to have them on board and just kind of learn the different perspectives of the municipal and the county elections and how they're similar, but really very different. And a lot of these judges really, they run the circuit and they do a lot of the elections, and there's not a big pool of people that are interested. So I do appreciate all of their hard work and everything they did that day.
Antoinette, would you have their names available so you could read those out for us?
I didn't bring them with me. I apologize. I wasn't sure that I wanted to read them off, only because elections these days are so contentious. I didn't want anything to fall on them.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I hope we're not that community.
I hope so.
But
Yeah.
But you never know.
I did just want them to be recognized
Yes.
at the meeting. Thank you.
All right, moving on to treasurer's report. Lori.
Good evening and welcome to the new trustees and Mr. Mayor. Treasurer's report, go ahead. You can pass that one, that's for when they're reading it. The 2023-2024 GF reserves and operating positions. You want to focus on April, which is all over to the right. The dark blue is the general fund reserves, and then the lighter blue is the operating. That kind of splits out for you where you are cash position wise and what we're using to maintain the town staff and basically week to week operating situation. So the GF reserves maintained the level from February to March. I didn't see a decrease, which is always good. And this is a positive position for the town to be in for the upcoming summer projects. We have funds set aside for those projects. We also have some great grants that have been coming in. So I think we're going to have a really good summer as far as getting projects done. And yeah, one more. There you go. This is a 5-year sales tax revenue. And we are the very dark blue line that took off really great in at the end of February. And then it took a dive. If you look right up at April, you could see where the dark blue line comes down. The April sales tax revenue is the taxes that were recorded in March by the state of Colorado. This comes through the Colorado Department of Revenue. So all the taxes were for February and they are collected in March. And then the town receives these tax revenues at April. So the February sales tax decreased more than I expected. It's actually 10.19% less than 2023. Considering past trends that I've seen, March sales tax may decrease again because year after year, I think we've witnessed kind of spring break getting shorter and shorter. Now for February, the taxes that we just received, there was some concern at the ski area that their President Day numbers were lower than anticipated, and the month just did not perform quite up to the crowd levels they're expecting. I kind of gone out and did a little bit of research, and quite a few ski areas are reporting lower skier numbers. And there was a news report I saw where ski areas have put so much focus on the season passes that the concern is kind of turning towards maybe those day skiers that we used to kind of take for granted, and that they've been outpriced. They've been priced out of the market. And hopefully, they may be looking into that a little bit more closely. Because families, I've heard from other people elsewhere that, families and people just really are having a hard time affording coming skiing right now. A family of 4, that's an expensive day if you're just buying your tickets at the ticket window or buy them just with a couple of day advance, that's still a pretty expensive day. So we'll have to see what happens. So, yeah, that was it. So lower than 2023, and I didn't like the look of that, but hopefully we'll see what happens for March. And go ahead, next one. There we go. The short-term sales tax revenue, in April, the March sales tax, it actually increased just a tweak over February. It is staying at about 16% of overall tax revenue. And their performance was decent. We're just not seeing the equal performance in the retail. So, any questions?
So a couple of the reasons that we focus on the sales tax month to month and the short-term rental tax revenue that we're seeing is kind of comparing the sales tax numbers to people that are here. I think if you saw a downtrend in short-term rental tax revenue, you would likely see a subsequent downtrend in sales tax. But one thing I think is also of note is it shows the commercial opportunity that's here as well. And it's just a good comparison as far as, one, are people coming here based on this being a tourism-based economy? And 2, are they spending money in Fraser? So I think those are 2 good things to compare in addition to our current cash positions that were shown in the first slide there. So that's kind of the intent of these presentations, is just provide a decent overview every month throughout the year, just to keep a good track on how things are looking and how this may impact our budget or not impact our budget. So, yeah. Thanks, Lori.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, moving on to Grand Park Market Street Buildings update. Clark Lipscomb to present to the board.
Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? And congratulations to the new people on the board, new old faces. Also, I want to say thank you to Parnell for all his years. And you did make the meetings very interesting. So that was always fun. And to Eileen, who has done the biggest favor anyone ever did for me in my life, is Eileen Waldo, who, as you all that might have been here know, beat me very badly years and years ago when I ran for board. And thank you, Eileen. Thanks for your great service all those years. We've had some fun meetings together. So, how do you want me to? Okay, maybe. Sorry, my laptop died, so I got to bring my iPad here, guys. So give me 1 second. Oops. Is my screen. Do you have any idea how to share this on here? No, I've got share content. Google Drive. You have it on your slide?
We do.
Do you want to pull it up and then I can roll through it and you can follow me?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I apologize, guys. I don't normally present on my iPad, but as it goes. Okay. You want to hit full screen, Antoinette? Thanks. And yeah, thank you all for having us tonight. I appreciate the time, and I'll be pretty brief, pretty short presentation, but just want to give an overview of the Market Street buildings that have been sitting idle for too long, and where we're at and where we're headed. The buildings, we met with Michael and the building official end of last August. Laid out our plan to get going on the buildings. They're not easy buildings, they're complex, and have spent the winter reorganizing, lining out materials, getting bids, still working on some subcontractors. But the buildings will be going full steam ahead very soon. There's still kind of sheet ice in there right now, but we're waiting on them to melt out. So maybe can you see my screen from there? You could just follow me if you want. So this is the site plan of the two buildings. And, you know, much like you guys were talking about with sales tax, and commercial in this town is quite difficult. And there's times where everybody does really well, and there's times where it's okay. And then there's some times where it's really not good at all. And it's a very big challenge to manage with employees, et cetera. And I myself own a few businesses in town and manage through the same thing. And so I have maybe a little bit of a unique perspective compared to most developers that would be building commercial. So one of the things that we've always felt was we needed critical mass before we went and developed commercial. We need more rooftops, more people, more consistent visitors, more tourists, et cetera, to help support the commercial base. So that said, we are where we are, and we'll get into some of that here and why and how these came about. These buildings are two-story buildings. They're solid concrete, steel reinforced concrete, and steel buildings. They're very solid. They are in aggregate 45,446 square feet of space, including the upper level decks. So this is some very large square footage, and they're designed as free span buildings. They're literally, there's kind of, you know, a few columns down the middle, but for the most part, they were full flex when they were designed, because we were building them on spec. And so they could house one user per building, or as you can see, they have very traditional, as I call Main Street USA storefronts that could house an individual business in each one of those storefronts. That was our kind of hope for idea back when these were started. Okay. So here's an example concept. This was actually worked on in 2019. It was pre-COVID. It was a business that we were working with locally. And this is a bar restaurant concept. And this is important. Unlike a lot of buildings that are built, we expended a lot of money and design time on a grease trap system that's literally sized for every one of these storefronts to be its own restaurant. There's two swimming pool sized grease traps that are road rated in front of these buildings in the parking areas, so that people don't think about where's the grease go from the restaurants. We don't particularly like seeing the bends, and certainly didn't think that was appropriate along our nice bike path. And so this would all go in the ground, and the piping inside the buildings is designed to accommodate both kitchen functions, grease trap related functions, and separately independent sanitary functions. Okay. Big expense, can't see it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that those are there, but they do give us a lot of opportunity for what might go into these spaces. Okay. Next slide. So these are the original plan elevations and some of the concepts that this is about as open book as it gets, guys, in terms of concepts and things that we're working on. We've been brainstorming and kicking around ideas of what could go in here, what would we like to see in here, an indoor putt-putt facility, bocce ball, cornhole lounge. These are some of the things if you guys travel around much, seem to be pretty popular and would work well, we think, in this environment, and certainly suitable in these buildings. Indoor and outdoor music venues with performing arts capabilities. One of these buildings was designed with that in mind and has a sunken pier that is effectively for a sunken dance floor. So it has stair steps in the building, kind of a terraced approach, so that it gives you different viewing opportunities. That's an interesting one, and it's something we're working on now. We also have met with the Fraser Arts director about, potentially about offering at certain days of the week to them for some performing arts functions, because it certainly would be suitable for that as well, should that design come to life and really happen in that space. Gallery, event lounge. So we have second level space on these buildings, and the original idea is lease the second level, the first level. Every restaurant needs office space. There's always backroom stuff. So rather than below grade like we have in a lot of ski towns, we said, well, we're going to put it upstairs. That said, we are working on, I call it an event lounge. We have kind of an art gallery concept with an event-centric focus on revenue generation that kind of creates a vibrant, ever-changing space that could host special events, wedding receptions, things of that nature on a second level, and could be serviced by a restaurant bar that we designed in here. It's just trying to create more revenue streams to provide an opportunity for a business that's in here to have a broader spectrum of economic opportunities for the business, right? So that they're not so focused on just one thing. Restaurants, bars, retail, office space, Grand Bark. We will have Grand Bark one day, because I'm going to do that. That's basically a dog park / dog, it's the dog's parents' bar to go hang out with, but their dogs can all run together. So we've got kind of some fun ideas. Grand Bark would not go in these buildings, but it would be in the village. And then a summer outdoor bar. And that's a concept I really like. And you can see here, this is where we're going. This creates kind of a bookended green across from these buildings. And that's where we would do the outdoor bar. And this slide's about how did this all begin? And when we started, the village at Graham Park, it was a big idea and an economy and a market that certainly by no means supported it. And we knew that it would be a long time to develop. I think the board understood it would be a long time to develop, but it really, at the time, and I think still is, one of the predominant economic development areas for the town of Fraser. Okay, it is one of the few areas that you can do something like this. And it's a very appropriate location for it. I think it's complementary to what the town's trying to do to the river district. I think the two coexist. They're very different. And I think ultimately this will be a very long time to develop. I can tell you that. So we started with a Winter Park Market, a gas station. I needed an office. We were trying to figure out, well, geez, what works, and, kind of figure that out, and it worked. That drove traffic. That was helpful. The rec center came along very shortly after that was conceived, and has been a great asset to the community. As I think many of you know, we donated the land and the infrastructure for the rec center, the Grand Park Rec Center. And I think that's done wonders for certainly families with young kids. And I haven't been there enough, as you can tell. I probably need to be more motivated to get in the gym, but nonetheless, really nice asset for the community. And then we went idle for a little while. And then the Foundry Bowl and Cinema came along. Again, another kind of entertainment component that bookended the project. And with that, we ended up doing the signalization and widening of US Highway 40 there, which was driven in large part by traffic trips from the convenience store gas station. That ultimately led to coinciding with the Union Pacific Railroads finally cooperating on a railroad underpass that got shifted dramatically to the south and happened to line up with that street. And those led us to ultimately 2019. So these projects are long. That underpass took 13 years. A lot of stamina involved. Took 2 years to build, but it took 11 years to get finally approved to be able to go build it. It was painful. And I think what a great asset, right? For people that live in Winter Park today, and for our life safety folks, et cetera. Really, pretty neat project. Far better than the old at-grade crossing. So that led itself to 2019. 2019, we sold land to the Crimley Memorial Hospital District for a hospital. The town had given us an economic incentive, I think it's 2018, to start these buildings. We actually started these buildings in 2019. And we're building those in earnest. The medical center was going in earnest. And we had the Willows Apartments directly across from this that also were fast, hot, and heavy with HUD on that concept. And that all led to how this came about, because again, it was about critical mass. It was about people and about creating a spot where, if those 204 apartments had happened, there's 400 people there probably that are walking on a sidewalk to the businesses that are here. They didn't happen. So, that was unfortunate. COVID happened in 2020, sidelined the medical center, sidelined us for a short period. And then for a number of reasons, the Market Street buildings permits expired, and ultimately we just worked out late last fall an extension to give us the time to get going and get these built again. So we're really happy to be moving forward with that. We also kind of what's next in here after these are done. The medical center starting. The next is lodging. We've got a lodge component that we're working on that's interesting. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But I think it is one of the next things that we do need. And it's certainly a big benefit for the town and would be very beneficial and helpful to economic development of businesses in this location. And there will be residential in here one day, condominiums, more retail, et cetera. So this will continue to evolve. We're, very married and have a mass amount of infrastructure in the ground for this village. So it's not going to change dramatically from what you see in this image. We would like to, and we will be coming to the town with a request to overlay an entertainment district. It's more alcohol driven. Antoinette, get ready. Won't be anytime like immediate, but the idea is to be able to have a, a village like this that really has a lot of different varieties inside and outside, celebrates the arts and cultural and is creative, but is a place that you can go and just kind of wander around and hang out. Helps the state and local economy. I want to be able to walk out of one bar with my cup and my drink in a plastic cup and go to another one, right? And that's really what the entertainment district concept's about, and it links in with the outdoor bar across the street and really some of the outdoor vibrant things, probably more summer driven than winter. But generally speaking, that's what we want to try to achieve, right? This is about enhancing the quality of life of our residents and our visitors, and really providing something that I don't think we provide this type of venue and experience today anywhere in this valley. And there's a lot of people that come here, and I think this leads ultimately to this being successful, which is better for Fraser's economic development, the state's economic development, et cetera. So, I mean, ultimately, we're really focused on economic development, and for this to be viable, it has to be economically viable first, right? So, in any case, that's big picture, kind of where we're headed. These are some more images. And, for those of you that have been around for a while, this green concept came about, while I was sitting around with a friend one day talking about some concerns that I had about a design for some quite large buildings across the street from Market Street. And he had the right idea of, why don't you just put a couple of bookend buildings on there and create kind of a cool central area between them across the street, which keeps Market Streets, plazas, and sidewalks and whatnot that face more or less west, getting a lot of sun. So I was like, that's a pretty cool idea. So in the top left, you can see kind of a crude, sketch that was done. And then the top right is more of a, graphic image of more like what it will look like, with buildings on each end. And I do think it's very complimentary. You can see the Market Street facades right there. So, I mean, I could see myself hanging out and kids playing across the street in this area, for instance, or a band being, across the street and having buildings on either end. I think this can be really fun and really cool. So, we have a ways to go, but, ultimately I wanted to share with you guys the Market Street buildings will look like they do in these images. They're very complex. There's a lot of materials on them. There's a lot of decks, a lot of porches coming off. That creates depth in the architecture of those buildings. And it's not easily installed and not easily applied. They'll be done right. That's going to take us some time. And like we're working on window packages now, and for me, it's really, really critical that we nail the functionality of the window packages. We want this building to, when the weather's conducive to it up here for 2 weeks a year, month, no, I'm kidding. To really feel like if you're inside, you're outside, to be able to open it up. And a lot of great window systems out there today that achieve that. And I think, we'll get there. And I think everybody will be really pleased and proud of what the buildings look like. But I still have to fill them and get them operational with businesses and tenants and figure that piece out. So hopefully, we'll get some good businesses that see the vision that we see and that can move forward. This is the Fraser Medical Center. I think they've done a couple of presentations to you all. I don't know that everybody here knows a whole lot about it, but when I came here, there were several what I call core basic public services that were missing. And I think we've achieved a lot of them. And medical was one, and this medical piece checks one of my boxes. The one I failed on was education. Didn't quite get there. Could still happen maybe one day, and probably will be needed one day. But that's, aside from that, this is a great box to check. And I'm really excited. They are moving snow right now. Actually, there's loaders clearing their site. Their contractor is there. And they've got a pretty tight schedule to hit. So it should be exciting. You'll see a lot of activity. We are working with them for them to not have to be isolated to their lot that they bought from us, to their site. We're giving them the lot that I have behind the bowling alley theater for all their construction trailers. We're giving them staging areas across the street for their construction materials, et cetera. The goal being to help them be more cost effective, hopefully save a little bit of money, but also to be more efficient in their build. Because when you're isolated on a site like that and having to hopscotch and move stuff around, boy, it can get tough. So we've been working for several months with their contractor to help hopefully tee it up so they can be really successful and get after it. So it has a helipad. I think really, nice building, good architected the buildings. And I think it's going to have some services that we, desperately need for the community. And, my hope is that, one day maybe the ski area is somehow integrated into there in terms of their service needs, and that instead of having a family that maybe has an accident, that somebody banged their head and the whole family has to leave to go to Denver because they got to go get their scan and whatnot to make sure they're okay, that maybe they can do it here. And then the family can stay and go out to dinner that night and, continue to help support the businesses in our town. That's my ultimate kind of driver on this thing. I think to have a tourist environment like we have with the number of people that come up here, we really need quality medical care. And I think a lot of people look at that when they're evaluating where they go. So anyway, good luck to those guys. I hope they do great. I think they've got a good team. The rec center is getting expanded. Unfortunately, it's just a small piece that was taken off back in the day that I probably did not have taken off back in the day, but it was budget sensitive back then. It's costing quite a lot more than the money that was saved. Obviously, everybody knows what costs have done and what inflation has done. But I think generally speaking, it's a great addition for the functionality of the space, and they need it. And we're working with them right now on actually design review. I had a call this morning with their architects. They still have to go through our design review. And I think that's an important component. I heard at the last meeting, somebody talking about the river district, and I didn't touch on it in this. It's in one of these slides. The Village at Grand Park design guidelines are very comprehensive. We put them in place at the very beginning and onset of our conception of this idea of what this would be and what it would look like. This is more traditional, what I consider Colorado mountain resort type architecture. This is not modern type architecture. And I think this is very reflective of the architecture that we want, is very reflective more of, the Fraser Mercantile Building or some of the character that you might see around Old Town Fraser. I'm married to that. I love that architecture. I love classic architecture. I think we put a fresh twist on it. Maybe the windows are a little larger, just to make it functionally current. But generally speaking, I think we have a great roadmap for any buildings that go in here, and a great way for them to kind of cohesively link together, but still be a little bit different. We don't want everything to be the same, obviously. So our goals are, they're lofty goals. They're going to take a while to develop and build. We know that. But I think it's great to have a really good program that I think has been exceptionally well thought out over a long period of time that we can grow into in the spaces there. And so as the town needs more economic development and the supports there and the business that are in these spaces and the spaces down here in town are doing well, we've got another place to grow. That's what this is about. And that's what the Village at Grand Park's about. And I don't think we've done a big deep dive on what the Village at Grand Park was conceived to be. It's kind of still in its infancy. But I think Market Street fills out the frontage, which is what was part of my drive when we started to do it, because it linked with the underpass coming online, et cetera. And then I think with that, and then the medical center certainly kind of closes off that end. And now we've got kind of a nice row of buildings, and then it's next row in. Those probably won't be developed for a long time, but it's important to kind of have the thought process and the goals of understanding how this has been. The stage is set, I think, with a solid plan. We just, need more people, more rooftops, more critical mass, more tourists. And frankly, I mean, I think your numbers are showing it. Our numbers show exactly what your numbers show. COVID was a great period and the great escape for our community. And I think it shows what the economy would be like here if you're a business owner, if we had a few more people that lived here year round or mostly year round, right? And that was kind of a cool snapshot in that regard. There were other things that were not cool whatsoever about it, but I big picture, we think this area is going to continue to grow, and we want to be here and be a part of it. And we want it to grow in a way that's healthy for the community, the residents, and our tourists.
So what's gonna happen? So this was on for 15 minutes. You said you're gonna be fast.
I was
So what's the
fast.
update on, what can we look forward to being completed this summer? So we're not getting all the complaints and comments from everyone in the community and stuff.
Well, the first thing that'll go up is the rest of the foam will go up and the steel. I think the subcontractor that's doing that work has asked for a 10-week period to get that up. So you're going to see the buildings get up and get bigger, and the steel that's sitting on the ground get off the ground and up in the buildings where it belongs. I hope towards the end of the year, windows are going in, roofs, the end of really summer, fall. A lot of our decision of when we're starting now is based on weather conditions. Since you're pouring concrete and there's a lot of concrete, it's better to do it in the summer months. So our goal is to get the shells completed as far as the structure. So that means windows are in ultimately too. That'll make a big difference, right? Windows go in this thing and it is a whole different animal.
So
And
would
there's,
you be able to close it up?
that's the goal.
Is that
That's
right?
basically by winter is to have it dried in. Okay. Probably have some of the exterior materials going on. Really depends on how quickly we can get the structure and the shape up. What's that? There's a lot of masonry. There's a lot of stone and a lot of brick. Mine commented on that today. Clark likes brick. I do kind of like brick. Bottom line is if we can get to that early enough in the year, then some of that will go on. I don't think all of it will be finished. And so that's why we asked Michael to October of 25. I think these things are completely finished with the site work and everything. We have quite a bit of, there's storm drainage work that we're going to be installing. So you're going to be seeing a bunch of earthwork out there again. So there's underground storm drainage in all the village today that goes to an already existing detention pond that's built for all of the lots in this area. And we're putting in a parallel storm drain on the lots under the plaza areas that all the roof drains off this feed into. So there will be no water or anything coming off of these roofs. It'll be going underneath. And it's about creating that outdoor environment. And then the plaza areas around these buildings are snow melted. Okay. So that, theoretically, it's pretty much just open for business and clear regardless of whether we're in the dead of winter or middle of summer. That is a lot of groundwork. There's a lot of infrastructure that we've got to work on the site around it. So that's why I don't think we'll be totally finished with these until October of 25. We are working with a person on a business concept that if it comes together, I like the business concept. We would love to have that business open and operational next winter. That's a big push. That's a tall order, big push, may not happen, but might as well set your goals big.
Is
So
it
that,
possible to focus on the exterior finish on the Highway 40 side?
no, because of the way the buildings are
to
designed and
do
the
it, okay.
structure and the way the bar joist set on the walls. I mean, you literally, picture, you've seen CMU block wall go up. This is way stronger. This is solid 8-inch thick concrete that has a whole lot of rebar in it. The building that is closest to my office, we refer to as the north building, and then the one that's close to the bowling alley, we refer to the south building. The north building is closer to having the roof go on. There's a 4-foot row on that gets poured, and then bar joist gets set. The south building, they want to pour the second floor walls in one lift. I'll be there when that happens. That's a big pour. And I hope that it works. They know what they're doing, but that kind of stuff makes me nervous. So that just means it gets sped up if they're successful on that goal. So I think the answer to your question is no. But because of the way the structure is designed, and typically you can't build one side of a building and not build the other three anyway in this format. So goal is to get the steel up, get this thing finished to the very top. There's big parapets on this, big parapet walls. So these varying roof lines that you see in this elevations are solid concrete going up, but they're parapets. So they've actually got well, it's not a flat roof, it's a sloped roof behind them that drains. But it's quite a big step down. So once the steel deck is set, there's another pretty good chunk of concrete that goes up on top that creates all these varying, kind of old school, classic Americana storefront facades. And like I said, they've asked for 10 weeks. And that's probably reasonable from the start date.
All right.
So I think bear with us, and it'll look a lot different towards the end of this summer, and then next year, around fall of 25, it should be finished. And maybe we even have some operational businesses in there.
Okay.
So, okay. Any other questions? Anybody in the audience have any questions? I've talked long enough.
I have a
Okay.
question. So Clark, who's going to be the general contractor?
I am the general contractor, Peggy.
You're kind of busy, aren't you?
Well, I can always be busier. I don't sleep much, so,
Well, being a general
I
contractor
was
of a
thinking about
commercial
helping account
project
votes,
is
but
kind of a big undertaking.
yeah, well, I think we can handle it. So, yeah,
He has a Lisa.
I'm sorry.
Do you know what's intended for the expansion of the rec center?
Yeah,
Well,
it's
they
the-
need to come to the mic so
Oh,
that we can
yeah.
hear them.
Here,
out.
I can,
just gonna
the
take
question
that one,
was,
but-
do you know what's intended for the expansion of the rec? The fitness center upstairs is getting expanded over the flat roof. Just, it's more weights, more aerobic area. I think they're doing a kind of a another kind of functional, I can't even think of the name, like P90.
It's
what
like
do
a
you call it?
squat rack row.
Yeah, basically, they're expanding the fitness center, adding a little bit of storage that they need pretty badly for heavy equipment, weights, whatnot. And then they're adding another office in the lobby when you walk in the downstairs. It's kind of internal expansion, but they need more office space for another staff person.
They have more hours, you think, if they have another staff person?
Mhm.
Right know that?
I talked to the architect about that today. I will be, it's something, actually, this came up last week with a hotelier that we're dealing with. Because I was encouraging that hotelier to work with the rec center and feed their clients there. And they looked up online the hours, which are not what they were pre-COVID. And I would very much love to see them back to pre-COVID operational hours. Because the problem for the hotel was, closing Sunday at 5 really doesn't work for our guests very well, Clark. And we're going to have our own facilities because the flag's going to require it. So something to aspire to, I guess. Any other questions? Anybody else? All good? Cool.
Okay. Get to work.
Eileen, no questions? Come on, Eileen. All right.
Get her
Thanks,
done.
guys. I appreciate it. If you guys ever need anything, just call me.
Clark, I would like to just reference the ad that you put in the paper. I think there are some omissions and some misrememberings of historical fact, and I just don't want disparaging of this town. So we're going to be working together for a long time. So maybe Michael, you can kind of run through some of the timeline discrepancies there.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation, Clark.
You're welcome.
So some things that we just have some conflicts with,
And what is this for people that don't know about the article? the
so in
paper?
the Sky High today, there was a publication in the Sky
Thank
High News showing some timelines of things. So just a couple of things I want to clarify is one of the things that one of the bullet points talked about the buildings sit idle for 22 and 2023. I think it's important to just to recognize to the community, I mean, that the building permit was active from May 2021 for 2 years through May of last year. And during that time, there was no movement, but that was nothing to do with the actual building permit itself. I think it was based on some of the disagreement as far as economic incentives. But the other bullet point that you had on there as well is that the Fraser reinstated the building permits in May of 2021 for a short window for completion, which is, I think, 2 years. I wouldn't call that a short window, but I'm just saying, I think there's some discrepancies here. A lot of this is based on economic incentives and loss. I think you could agree as far as loss of drive, as far as when those economic incentives were looked to be renegotiated. The town never revoked the economic incentive package. It expired. And the town did work to renegotiate that economic incentive with you, requiring a surety through a construction guarantee agreement, which was ultimately denied by Grand Park to continue to reinstate those economic incentives. So just wanted to
Well,
provide
your
those-
history is a little different than mine, and every document from the town was pulled to go through and put that together. And of course, we would have needed the whole newspaper to write the whole story. But let's just be clear, when the permits were expiring in October of 2020, we made a request to extend those permits. And the town refused to extend the permits and did not extend the permits, right? And that was after the town itself had asked for who knows how many extensions on the park potties and grants, et cetera, that itself couldn't fulfill because of COVID. And then it was West Levanchi, and by the way, they weren't being extended because they wanted a bunch of things that the town was not entitled to under the code. And I have all the emails and the correspondence from Catherine Trotter and our legal team and West Levanchi, your interim manager at the time, that had they just extended the building permits, we're not talking about this today. So we went from October of 2020, Michael, there's no disparaging here, right? This is reality. So October of 2020 to May of 21, you're right. West finally conceded. They're right. Town code doesn't allow what the town's been asking for. And I'm going to give them their building permit back. Only I remember that one having a shorter permit period. Then in June of 21, the town revokes, and they did revoke, it did not expire because the economic incentive that was in there only did not have an expiration provision. It had to be terminated or revoked by the town. The town revoked that in June of 21, 1 month after giving the building permit back to go start the buildings. Now, when do we start planning for our construction seasons here? Typically the winter before. Okay. So I say that's a bunch of nonsense. And the building sat idle for 2022 and 2023. And by the way, the June of 21 revocation of the economic incentive also corresponds with the timing of the town starting the issues over Cousins Meadow, pulling our building permits, stopping COs, stopping all development permit activity at Grand Park. Now, if you're sitting in my shoes and you know what I know, hang on. This correlates to me is the town was trying to strong arm our company to stop these buildings, trying to get something they're not entitled to on our private land. Okay. And all you got to do is put this timeline together. So I'm sorry that you guys feel the way you do. Only I lived it and breathed it every day and you guys didn't. And I know what happened. And I frankly didn't want to revisit the past. And that's why we're moving forward. That's the article.
If you didn't.
And Brian,
want
sorry
to
you feel that
revisit the
way, but we're
past,
really
why
happy
did you
that
put
we're
a
moving forward
timeline
now.
in the ad? I
The
mean,
timeline's-
you
the
did
timeline's
this,
accurate.
You did this to
Yeah.
attempt to put a black eye on the town of Fraser, and that is
No.
not helping this relationship.
Well, sorry you feel that way. But I thought it was, I actually got a number of calls today. Thank you for telling us what's going on and glad you're going forward with the building. So I hope that you guys are happy that we're going forward with the buildings as well.
We
So,
are-
and
we
thank you
are-
for your support.
We are happy that you're moving forward with the buildings, Clark, but there is definite discrepancies in that ad. I just want to state that for the public.
Okay.
All right, moving on, Downtown Development Authority.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. So, you didn't notice the DDA did pass for both the creation and formation of the Downtown Development Authority and for the debt authorization for the Downtown Authority as well, by one vote, which was exciting. Moving forward with this, I just want to kind of go over some brief next steps to kind of provide everyone with an overview of what they can expect to see with the DDA. We had a conversation with Butler Snow that we had a contract with for the work leading up to cover legally how we can approach this DDA initiative. They wrote the ballot language. They helped us put in place, what we can and can't do as far as advocacy for those ballot initiatives, how we can advocate, how we can inform, and ultimately built a web page around that to inform the community with that. So as far as next steps with the Downtown Development Authority, we'll be looking at presenting an ordinance to the board for approval to actually create the Downtown Development Authority. We have the authorization from the voter base to create a Downtown Development Authority. It just has to be brought to fruition via ordinance. So Butler Snow is working on drafting that ordinance, and we plan to have that to the board by May 15th. Additionally, once we approve that ordinance, we would then be looking at the Board of Trustees to be appointing 5 to 11 member board, however you want to do it. We're typically seeing 7 on a lot of different things, so maybe that makes sense. You can always change the number, increase it, decrease it if you want to. But let's just say, for example, you wanted to go with a 7-member board. You would be appointing 4 different property owners or residents within the set boundaries of the DDA. Then you would be appointing 2 other business representatives, which could be business owners, business employees, or potentially even corporate partners or corporate officers that work with like a Safeway Corporation, for example, as long as they have the business within the DDA boundaries. And then the last appointee would actually be a trustee from the Board of Trustees. So something to think about there. There will be an opportunity once we get there for someone on the board to be appointed to the Downtown Development Authority as their actual own board. But the town will always have representation through one appointed trustee that would run with their term. Once those people are appointed, and we plan on, we're having a goal of by the end of next week to launch a campaign with that application process, even before we pass the board approves that ordinance to create the DDA. We'll put out the application and market that with a job description of what it looks like to be on that DDA board.
Right.
So we're planning on having that published by the end of next week. Wanting to provide a 30-day window for those applications to come in, and then be looking at the board to evaluate those applications and then appoint members to the DDA on June 5th. Once that board is established, they'll be determining their meeting times. We anticipate contracting or continuing to work with Downtown Colorado Inc. to work through establishing the bylaws, the mission and vision statement. This is all you may hear this is very similar to how the housing partnership was established with their own board and mission statement and bylaws. Our attorney team will be helping with drafting those bylaws, and Downtown Colorado Inc. will be helping with facilitating the process for the mission, value, and goals for that DDA. Once they are established, the next step is to look at drafting a plan of development For the Downtown Development Authority, the plan of development is the key document that basically says what the DDA can and can't do. It can be very general, it can be very specific. Once that plan of development is drafted with the DDA, they will then present it to the town's planning commission for a recommendation from the planning commission to make some tweaks or alterations. Or ultimately a recommendation to the board to approve that draft of development or not. Following that planning commission meeting and that recommendation, it will then come to the town board for approval of that plan of development. Once that plan of development is approved, that's what really starts the clock as far as when the tax increment can begin to build. Once that is adopted, then the DDA will then be looking at hiring an executive director. And that's something that I'll be having conversations with Brian and with the board about. We have some ability with staff to provide some interim workings for an executive director, essentially like a working team to help facilitate the meetings here if they would like to. But also within town staff, we could be looking at appointing an executive director, at least for the first couple of years until it gets some legs of its own. And then if the DDA wants to go and elect their own executive director, they could, but that would be my recommendation, is to have someone plugged in with our planning and zoning staff to help guide that until it really gets its own legs.
Be more affordable.
It would be, and
them.
you know, this is not, there's no mill levy attached to this, similar, you know, like with the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership, they were able to pay a salary for an executive director right off the bat by using that mill levy. This will be using the tax increment financing, which is capturing that portion of increased valuation of properties within the boundaries over time, a portion of that increased valuation. So that's not something that you can necessarily pay a full-time salary for. So we'll begin to work through those things. And the next thing that you'll see is an ordinance before the town board for consideration to create this Downtown Development Authority. You know, as close as it was, I think that every interview that was on KFFR and every handout, and Katie did a lot of walking around, knocking on doors. I was dropping off some skis once, and she was coming around with her flyers. It was just it was a lot of advocacy for a very complicated thing that is hard to grasp until you really read into it. So I just want to commend the Board of Trustees, Katie, and the staff, specifically Antoinette McVeigh and Sarah Catanzaro, who did a ton of work on this to provide this as an opportunity for the town and to its community for ultimate approval. So congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome. One vote really does count.
It really does, absolutely. Any questions about that process or standing that up? Feel free to shoot them to me as you got them, including members of the public. You got any questions? You have a question? Please go ahead.
Can you go to the mic?
Yeah.
Let us know your name and if you live in the town of Fraser.
Yeah, my name is Joy McCoy. I live in Fraser. I don't need to tell my address, do I?
Correct.
Okay. My question is, there is a member of the Board of Trustees on the DDA. Is there also a member of the Planning Commission on the DDA, or is that a requirement?
It's not, but if that was part of the quality, you know, as far as application that was received for the DDA, if it's a resident or a business representative that has an established residence or works for a business within the boundaries of the DDA, and they're on the planning commission, I mean, maybe there's some value there, but it's not a requirement for state statute.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on. Resolution 2024-0403, Town of Fraser Board of Health appointments. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. So before you is an appointment, a recommendation appointing myself as the health officer for the town and finance director Lori to the Board of Health. Currently, the Board of Trustees is the Board of Health. You were formed in 1987 as the Board of Health. But as far as providing for enforcement, you need to appoint a health officer. The previous appointee was actually Nat Havens used to serve on the Board of Health, and now you still do in a different role, don't you? But it's something that was appointed back in, I believe in 2007, where the town manager, Jeff Durbin, was appointed as a health officer. And what this is it's typically, it's just an administrative function that allows enforcement of local and state statute code related to public nuisances to be enforced. And typically with every change of town manager, this is something that needs to be done. It's just something I think has been overlooked for the last couple of years. And fortunately now we have code enforcement with our police department, which is great. But there are areas outside of that that may be relevant for this role. So what this is, it's just appointing myself as a health officer, and you can always add to the Board of Health, such as if there was a major health related issue that requires specialization from like a physician. For example, you know, that's something that you could actually look on adding another member who is a qualified physician to the Board of Health to help guide those conversations. But typically with the history that we've been seeing at Fraser, with the town manager function as a health officer, which has to be appointed by name, not by position. And Lori as being appointed to the Board of Health in lieu of a physician. It makes sense for just being able to allow for general enforcement. So that's really all this is, and it's referencing the code there for reference, which is covered there in the staff briefing. Happy to answer any questions you have.
I will make a motion to appoint Michael Brock as Michael, help me out, as the health officer.
Yeah, and it's already
And Lori Water, I'm sorry, I'm not reading it. I could read it.
it's already covered in the resolution too, Nat, if you just want to approve the resolution.
It's just the number itself.
Move to approve resolution 2024-0403, Town of Fraser Board of Health appointees.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I believe that was everyone. Vote carries.
Okay.
All right, we will move on to updates. This is for trustees or staff to give an update.
I have some updates. You may have noticed recently that, you know, we've been communicating about the 2 grants that we received. We did receive 2 separate $2 million grants for Victoria Village for infrastructure for grants.
Wow.
So tremendous
That's
thanks to the
fabulous.
town and for the housing project Victoria Village. Huge thanks to Sarah Catanzarite for really spearheading that. And
Wow.
Paul provided a ton of support too, just for the infrastructure, and that's what this money goes towards. So I just want to commend those guys for doing the work, making those hard applications. These are not easy applications. It's essentially like writing a master's level essay type of thing. They're very painful and time consuming, and have a lot of requirements that you have to adhere to. So just want to provide that update. That's exciting news for the housing project.
That's very exciting.
See, one thing to that we just want to put on your radar is for the June 19th meeting, everyone but Katie Fisher will be out for CML. So something to think about. We'll talk through that as far as being a meeting. I don't think we can have a meeting when everyone's not here.
Yeah.
But we'll be looking at kind of doing some rescheduling there and seeing what we can work out. Last thing I want to bring to your attention is, you may or may not know this, but my wife is 30 weeks pregnant with our 3rd child,
Boy.
and it is a boy.
Oh.
And, and that due date is July 2nd. And we're anticipating going probably a week prior for an induction. So very disruptive to my career, you know, obviously, but not career, but
Babies happen.
just the working. So I just want to give everyone a heads up on that, that at some point maybe come anytime, but,
You'll be
I'm
taking some time
looking
off.
at taking a week after I have that child, and then depending on the health of my wife and kid, trying to work through that from there.
Yeah.
So, it's right during CML, which is why I'm not going to CML, but otherwise I always enjoy attending that. But just want to put that on your radar, so you know, and not surprised by me disappearing for a week.
Nice.
Because of having, so that would be a little spontaneous, but working on how we can, how I can divvy up some responsibilities to staff to make sure this is hopefully as painless as possible.
Yeah.
So,
You got good staff. So CML is Colorado Municipal League, and it's an annual conference with municipalities from all over the state that meet and learn a lot and share a lot of ideas.
And another heads up, we do typically either cancel or reschedule the board meeting that first week of July, just because it's so close to the 4th of July. So that is in the plans. So we'll just kind of see what's on the agenda coming up, if we just skip that board meeting or if we reschedule it to the following week or something like that.
Okay.
And I have one fun update. I met with CDOT last week. They are going to, so as it currently stands, all the stoplights that run through Fraser and Winter Park are independent and do not relate to each other in any way, shape, or form. And they are going to be synchronizing them so that traffic can flow better based on direction, based on time of day, everything like that. So I gave them my feedback, but they're going to be here as well, watching traffic and doing all those things so that they can modify how they change from red to green.
And thanks to Fraser staff who filled the potholes at Eisenhower on Highway 40 today.
We go through the alley, so we don't have to get that possible.
It's bad.
You're good. So I didn't even notice. I can't wait.
Any other updates?
Brian,
Antoinette?
Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you so much for reappointing me and having the confidence in me to continue in this position. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Antoinette. Okay. Well, we are going to be moving into an executive session.
Okay.
We've got the verbiage.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
No, I don't know.
I'll read it. I'll read it.
Might as well.
Okay, ready? I move to enter into an executive session for a conference with the town attorney. Good time to do it? Sure, wait till they're gone.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can keep Chris. You've got a microphone.
I'll let it settle down just a little bit. I move to enter into an executive session for a conference with the town attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS section 24-6-4024B for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS section 24-6-4024E regarding litigation, to include town attorney Kent Littmer, town manager Michael Brown.
I second that motion.
need a second, yeah.
Yeah, I second that motion.
And Antoinette, it's my opinion that everything that will be discussed is attorney-client privilege, therefore we don't have to record the session.
For those in the public, we will not be coming after the executive session to adjourn.